So we have three ships that I can show you. I can show you. Well, I wrote a post-it note and it's bloody gone.
Bearn,
I've got Bearn,
Tulsa, and
and
Gibraltar.
something. Gibraltar, that's the one. Okay, so Bearn is the one that's first, and conveniently the lift has just popped up. So yeah, this is the first. This is the first carrier in the game that has an animated lift, and I'm sure Killerbin will be delighted to tell you about how that is not usual.
That is not usual. The bit on the top should go down and then come up so it's flush with the flight deck. Why the French decided to do a double deck, we're not quite sure. As I said yesterday, no one copies the French and the French copy no one. Their carriers had been built with regular elevators before this. Eagle, Hermes, even all those sort of ships, they had regular elevators.
Well,
And then
I
the
suppose
French did this.
I suppose it does make sense, because if you think about what happens to the elevator, if the deck goes down, you've got to have a whole bunch of stuff. Either you've got to have a recess underneath if it's a frame like this, where that disappears downwards.
On normal aircraft carriers, there is a well deck.
Yeah, you've got to have exactly. You've got to have like a lift well. So if you go up, it makes sense, because then you don't need a lift well, because your lift well is the sky. So it does make sense, because it means then you can have a continuous armor plate here, and you can have shit down here that you couldn't have otherwise. So it makes sense. It just looks odd.
In a way, yes, but no other nation ever decided to adopt this version of the lift, because a standard lift is lighter, and especially in the era of naval treaties, you need to save all the weight you can.
Yeah, true.
So Bearn is obviously the first French aircraft carrier coming to the game. She was the first aircraft carrier France ever constructed, a true aircraft carrier. They had seaplane carriers and stuff before this. They're actually quite proficient with them during the First World War. But she's built on a Normandy class hull. Not the Normandy we have in game. Wargaming adjusted the design somewhat. So the actual Normandy class battleship. And the Normandies and the Lyons were suspended because of World War One. At the end of the war, France is obviously bankrupt, but they want an aircraft carrier because the French Navy wants to keep abreast of developments. And they have one of the Normandies, I think it was about 40% done. So similar to what the Americans did with the Lexingtons, they had combat hulls that were being built, so they converted a Normandy into an aircraft carrier. She spent most of the interwar period just sort of developing French naval air doctrine and stuff. The fit we have in game, I believe, is her at the Fall of France. But they've added a few more AA guns here and there, and her aircraft, the bombers on deck, as you see, are American. They are Vought V156s. The French ordered about 150 of them for Bearn's air group and to fill out the air groups of the Joffre class carriers they were building. Obviously, none of that happened because of the fall of France, so the Brits took most of them.
Are they a three-person crew? They look like very
yes, pilot, navigator, and rear gunner. They're dive bombers. They even have bomb catapults. You can't really see on this model because they've got bombs under the wings, but similar to the German Stuka, the bomb mounted on the centerline has a catapult that propels it as the bomb is released to clear the prop.
Okay.
And in the Stuka, the chin radiator. She was not in France when France fell. I believe she was actually coming back from the United States, having picked up a bunch of aircraft. So ended up being interned in Martinique following the British attack at Mirs el Kibir, which was basically you either join us, scuttle your ships, sail them out of reach of the Germans or the Italians, and that sort of thing. And so Bearn went to, I believe, Martinique and spent most of the war there just sort of sitting there. When Vichy France was formally reintegrated into Free France and the ships were taken back into French hands, she was sent, I believe, to New Orleans for a refit, where it was determined that she was basically worthless. So she was reconditioned so she could sail under her own power, because she hadn't really done that for 4 years, and spent the rest of the war taking planes from the US to Europe, and post-war, I believe, spent most of her time as a barrack ship.
Oh, interesting. I suppose a carrier would make a pretty good barracks. It's a very nice model.
Oh, well, like I said, you say all you want about this game, but no one criticizes the art department.
Yeah, it's a lot of details. Just looking,
Um,
you can see so into the bridge here. You can or into the
yeah, that's
what's
the
it called?
superstructure of the bridge. Yep.
The whatever that is called. Um, yeah, you can see there's like you can even see the speaking tubes. Like if you look in through the windows there, you can see the speaking tubes going up into the next deck up. That's really cool. You can see the ship's bell.
Yeah. The only interesting thing they've decided to omit from her that could have been interesting gameplay wise is that closer to the stern of the ship, there are torpedo tubes.
They actually model.
There might be the hull from their launch, but on the plans, she had torpedo tubes
Oh, is that what
pointed
that
at
is?
her.
Is that down there at the waterline?
No, I don't think so. They're more broadside.
Oh,
So she might not have them in this exact fit, but at times in her service, she had torpedoes. When she was announced, we hoped they would have modelled them just because of how funny it would be to
it would be
torpedo a
hilarious
destroyer in your aircraft
in your
carrier
carrier. It'd be
with the
hilarious.
carrier.
Is that French? Yes, it is French.
Yes, Bearn.
So this is a tier 6. I mean, we don't know yet whether it's going to be premium or whether it's going to be tech tree. Generally speaking, recently Wargaming have been introducing like one premium / special ship as a proof of concept for a later line or series of premiums or something. So it's probably that. A good clue as to whether something is a premium or a tech tree ship is you come into the camouflage, and if it comes with a permanent camouflage, it's probably going to be a premium or a special. Yes. And this does have one, which suggests that it's probably not the tier 6 from a tech tree line.
Yeah, like when the historians among the community were discussing a potential French carrier line, we tended to put Bearn at tier 4 because she was France's first aircraft carrier, like how Hermes was the Royal Navy's first proper carrier, Langley was the Americans' first, Hosho was the Japanese. And so, though other people were like, no, she's unique and quirky and weird, so they might throw her in at tier 6 as a premium, and so they have done so. But yeah.
Weird setup.
Yeah, well, like I said, she's converted from a battleship.
Yeah.
Okay. Templar. So Bearn was French. Then they didn't get a purpose-built carrier that was their own construction until Bosch in the 50s. Clemenceau. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Foch or Clemenceau.
So, in game terms, she has AP bombers. So she gets, let's have a look here. She gets one squadron of 8 with 2 in each attacking flight. Each plane drops 1 bomb. And sorry about that noise you keep hearing is it's the like Windows alert sound, but it's not my computer. It's in the port because what you're seeing is the new designer's table port for 10.8, and it's really annoying. For some reason, they've decided to put that alert sound in the game. It's very subtle. It's quite quiet, but it's definitely that. It's not exactly the same noise, but it's very, very similar. And so I think you're going to go, oh, this is pretty. Oh, no, that's really annoying. So, yeah. It's really cool. I'll have a look around it in a second, but it's, yeah, I've just noticed that they've got that noise in there, which is going to get really annoying. So the bomb alpha is 6,300, so with one attack you could potentially do 12,600 damage if you get 2 citadels. And the planes are 123 knots with 158 knot boost. And you get 16 on deck, and you go out with 8. So you get a whole squadron in reserve. Then they've got skip bombers. There's only 2 armaments. You get skip bombers, and they do 11,000 alpha with 68 mil pen. 63% fire chance, and you get one squadron of, again, 8 with 2 planes attacking, and they only have 2 bounces, unlike, say, Immelman, which gets 3 bounces. Paul Molka, thank you very much for 4 months of Prime. Boo to you too. Thank you. And again, yeah, you get 8 and 16. So pretty consistent. You do get a fighter. Otherwise, pretty standard stuff.
That's a lot of fighters.
That is actually, yeah, that's true. I'm sure I read somewhere that one of the concepts of this is that the fighters are different to normal fighters in that essentially they've got enhanced reactions built in, sort of.
Interesting.
So that they attack quicker. So I'm sorry, I'm mousing over the wrong thing. I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about these ones. So, but it's not shown in the bloody UI. But I remember reading in the dev blog that this has fast reaction fighters, for want of a better term.
That could prove useful.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find the thing. Sharps. Dev blog.
Vanyup's got it. The ship squadrons are equipped with powerful patrol fighters that are effective against enemy aircraft. They have decent HP pools, a large number of plays in the group, a long action time, and a high number of charges. So they'll win fighter fights, they stay up for a while, however they're not good at spotting.
Yeah. Which kind of pushes them towards being interceptors.
But still gives them some ability to spot.
Exactly.
So to spot with them, you'd have to put them in the enemy's AA.
Yeah, probably. Which is kind of interesting concept. Be interesting to know what would happen if you take the captain and put some of the other fighter skills on. Like, what happens if you take this and put enhanced reactions on it? Do they like suddenly just like you can't go anywhere near them? They just go boom, and that's it. They've attacked.
It's just instant. Interesting. Like, I love that. Why can't all carriers do that?
Hi, DMC. Yeah, you've just missed it. Unfortunately, we've just done.
Go back in the stream.
Yeah, just go back in the VOD after we finished, and you can watch it. So let me just show the port. So this is the new designer's table port for the anniversary. You've got a big full-size torpedo plushie there. You've got some nice pot plants. They've basically made it like a gamer
That's
desk.
literally my mic arm. That's worrying.
It's mine as well. There's a captain. Yeah, there's a cap crisp packet or something there. I'm wondering whether they're going to do the same like normal code thing that they do with like the hidden clues. I'm guessing if they were going to do that, they wouldn't put them in here. But little wallpaper there. There's a USB stick. There's a model mine.
Pretty nice looking gaming PC.
In ships we trust mug. Water cooled gaming PC. Yeah. Little what's that say? I can't quite read the plaque on the little ship there. Golden fan, big fan. It's a little wooden boat. I think that boat over there is the container boat from the old port.
Looks like it, yeah.
Cactus. Some designs. Do you recognise the design?
That looks like Seattle, I think, from this angle. Gap in the middle, 4 turrets, US-style superstructure. I want to call that a Seattle.
Does that mean the radiator's the wrong way up? Does that mean maybe we're getting some kind of Seattle premium?
Oh God, I hope not. That thing's awful.
Yeah. What do you mean the radiator's the wrong way up? You don't want the inlets. You don't want it the other way around because then the air collects in the CPU. That's the right way around. Hey, Joby, how you doing? Nice to see you. Yeah, and then you got funky. I can't. The camera in this was really hard to show.
Criticizing Wargaming's ability to model a correctly built gaming PC. Oh, it's the wrong way up. The tubes are going over the RAM.
They've got those fashionable streamer lights on the wall. There's a couple of bean bags. It's a pretty nice port. Apart from the... they have a mine on the list. Maybe we get mines on the edge of the map. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Can't you go over to the container view? Oh, that might be that one, because it's normally there, isn't it? So it's...
Do you have any containers to open?
No, they've made this like sci-fi thing.
Yeah. Wow, 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 wow. Everything sci-fi makes that sound.
It's true. That is true. Okay, so next on the list we'll do Tulsa.
Okay, and I have broken out some actual reference book because I have someone who has the correct book, and they got me a quote regarding Tulsa.
Okay, so
for reference, she's an Oregon City class cruiser. She's Rochester's sister that was cancelled with the end of the war. So the name Tulsa was to go on a US heavy cruiser. However, this is page 352 from Norman Freeman's Book of US Cruisers. In May 1943, the Bureau of Ordnance first proposed a new 8-inch rapid-fire mount, which could be built in either twin or in triple form. This gun becomes Des Moines turrets. The Bureau hoped that its new mounts could be incorporated in the existing heavy cruiser hulls. At this time, that means late Baltimore's and early Oregon City class cruisers. The General Board immediately asked the Bureau of Ships to estimate the effect of the new turrets on the now standard Oregon City class heavy cruisers. Twin mounts would present far fewer problems, and the Bureau might even be able to modify ships already under construction. So the US Navy designed a twin turret version of Des Moines triple turret expressly to be able to take out the old triple from like a Baltimore or an Oregon City and drop in one of these twin turrets. But even though they went from 9 barrels to 6, the effective rate of fire would actually be higher.
Oh, interesting. Is that reflected in game?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check the reload.
The reload. Oh, it is. So the base is 5.5.
And a Baltimore reloads in what, 12?
So that's just slightly... what's the base on a Des Moines, though? Is that the same?
I think it's the base on the Des Moines, yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
So Tulsa she's a real cruiser that was cancelled because the war ended, and this gun swap was explicitly pursued by the US Navy when they had more money and sense than what to do with, because it's still 1943 and the war's still on. But this was absolutely something the US Navy was looking at.
Cool. It's a pretty nice looking ship. So let's go over the stuff. So it's HEAP. I'm assuming that it's the super heavy, so I'm assuming it gets the improved angles.
5,000 damage. Yep, that's the super heavy.
You get the normal choice between FA and Hydro. You get a 9-kilometer radar. Because this is a light cruiser, right?
No, it's a heavy.
Standardization.
It's very much a heavy cruiser.
Gaming, why?
This isn't a weird, because Wichita's based on a Brooklyn. No, this is an Oregon City. It's based on a Baltimore, which is a heavy cruiser. This is a heavy cruiser. It led into the Des Moines. They're heavy cruisers.
Yeah, so it gets a 9-kilometer standard 10-kilometer radar, 35-second base and a 2-minute reload. You get 3 of those base. It currently gets a 213 per second heal. Gets 3 of those base. I don't think it's got anything funky in terms of the stuff.
So the DMC has reported that... Is that HE or AP DPM DMC?
I can't play them DMC.
HE, so it's got 20,000 more HE, 20k more HE DPM than a Buffalo, which is 12 guns to this 6.
Hit points look a bit low. Well, I'm trying to work out where is the downside, right? I guess it's 9-kilometer radar.
9-kilometer radar, low range, 14.9.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I think if you're in a If you try to play this like a mini Des Moines or a rapid fire bolty, you only have 4 barrels forward. So you might struggle in a nose to nose.
True.
And especially if someone starts going for turret shots, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, indeed.
However, most people I know don't tend to rate Buffalo as too much of a threat because of its reload, even though it's got the same shells. So you might be able to catch people out expecting you to be similar to a Buffalo when you're shooting a lot quicker. At least in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're 50% down on your forward facing firepower, as you just said, and if you lose one of those turrets, you're kind of screwed. Yeah. Interesting concept, though.
Yeah, like I said, it's completely real. The US Navy looked at this. They designed the twin turret. They never built any because by the time they got around to being able to build them, the war was basically over, and most of the Oregons got cancelled. I think only 3 of 12 ordered were finished, and they only
Sorry,
got 3 of the 6 Des Moines they wanted.
just noticed in the background, there's also underneath the monitor there's a
Good evening, everyone.
gift container. Good evening, Doug. Thank you very much for 4 months. Besides, he will destroy Tulsa's turrets whenever he can, just to be mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, interesting. And then finally, we have Gibraltar. Tier 10.
Very well. So, just for these, HMS Gibraltar. What Goliath should have looked like. So, what we see here is the most extreme of the Churchill-style super cruisers, or treaty cruiser killers, more likely, using older 9.2-inch guns that the British still had in storage, mounted in 3 quadruple turrets. As you can see, if you look at the turrets themselves, they are a mix of King George and Belfast, because the 2 inner barrels are set further back into the turret, partially to deal with blast from the barrels affecting the trajectory of the other shells, and also to increase the space inside the turret, so you stagger where the barrel crews are positioned. Train Spy and me have had a look through this ship, and she looks more like what she would have looked like than Goliath. The visuals of the turrets make more sense. The AA placement makes sense. The bridge being a lot fuller makes more sense. And so, yeah, she's not perfect to what drawings we've seen for this ship, but given the time that Wargaming seemed to be modelling her in, a sort of late war, early post-war, she's fairly good. And she has 4 propeller shafts.
She has 4 propeller shafts, indeed. Yeah. She's got the typical flat transom. I really like this the British style bridge. It always reminds me of a castle.
Yeah, well, the nickname that they got was Queen Anne's Mansion. The idea being is that you couldn't make a very heavily armored conning tower was determined to be functionally useless, because the idea was in battle you'd go into the armored conning tower, but there wasn't a lot of vision because they had to keep it mostly safe. Then they also discovered that even if the walls of the conning tower you're standing in are 15 inches thick, if the shell hits that, the concussion alone is going to turn you all into jam.
Yeah.
So almost no Royal Navy officers ever used the arming conning towers on any of the warships they were provided in. They weighed an awful lot, since the conning towers often had thicker armor than the belt of the ship itself. So with more displacement concerns in the post-war era with the treaties and such, the Navy very quickly moved to a conning tower style that was good enough against destroyer and cruiser guns, but a battleship shell, the idea was that it would pass straight through, which proved to be the case at Denmark Strait when a shell from Bismarck went clean through Prince of Wales's bridge superstructure. Made an absolute mess of anything and everyone in the room it hit, because it's a 1-ton shell doing Mach something. But the shell didn't explode because the plating wasn't thick enough to arm it. And
if it goes through, it takes the energy with it.
Yeah, it saved a lot of weight, and it left you with this big space on the ship where you could put officers' quarters, and a very nice, stable place to put a whacking great radar at the top. Because a big issue a lot
It
of ships
does.
had was their narrow masts couldn't support the weight of radars. But
Uh-huh.
something that size, you can put a radar on and basically be okay weight-wise.
Sure. Are these daring turrets, the secondaries?
Yes, Mark Sixes. By the end of World War II, this design was being worked on. It was basically up until the 1970s was the standard British warship gun turret. It's accurate, it's fast firing, it's fast training. It was a very good gun. And the good old six Tuple Bofors, which I believe weigh like 70 tons apiece.
Wow.
These things, yeah. There's a photo I've got somewhere of like slightly miffed factory worker standing next to it, and it's truly massive.
Mm-hmm. You got one of the things I like to do when I'm looking at these models is like it's very like you look at a turret and it's very easy to sort of lose the sense of scale, but then if you look at sort of the ladders and the hatchways and things like that, you can easily imagine a person standing there.
Oh yeah.
And then you get the scale, it's like, wow, that's huge.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That was the thing that Hazel was mentioning when we went to Belfast. Was like,
Yeah.
in game she looks kind of small,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
standing
It's
next to her and
really
she's
not.
huge.
Yeah, like it's on Belfast. Like if you jumped, okay, I know this isn't Belfast, but if you were standing here, and there was actually video of people doing parkour off of Belfast. If you were standing here and you jump down here, unless you're like a trained parkour runner or whatever, you're gonna break your legs. Like
It's a good,
it's a long
like
way.
30-foot drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so she's the most extreme design drawn up during 1939, 40, 41. Just prior to Churchill becoming first Lord of the Admiralty, during his time as First Lord, and when he just after he became Prime Minister. And the purposes of these ships, armed with these guns, was to be able to fight something like Graf's Bay, 1 versus 1, and win fairly easily. Since the Battle of the River Plate showed that even with 3 cruisers, granted 2 small Leander class and a small York class heavy cruiser, Graf's Bay still proved, well, they got lucky with what they hit. The British cruisers hadn't done serious lethal damage to her. And something like Gibraltar or Goliath or Drake was designed to deal with them easily and require something on the order of Scharnhorst, Congo, a ship of that scale to have a obvious superiority over.
So it's just showing the armor. Has 25 mil nose and stern.
Yeah.
It's got 40 mil deck, 30 mil upper belt.
I believe she's fairly similar in armor to Goliath. But compared to Goliath, which is seen as a sort of dull Uber Hindenburg, Gibraltar only has armor piercing.
Yes, indeed. So 14.5 base reload. The range base is 16.9. They're 234 millimeters. Alpha of 5750. Yeah. The secondary is very G, of course. Don't think there's anything funky in the upgrades.
Yes, and as a nod to all of us who complained that Goliath carried the wrong gun name because they called it the Mark 12, Wargaming have acknowledged it and called these guns the Mark 10. Makes no game performance changes whatsoever, but at least it's the right name.
Oh, minor angles. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Yes, she is some sort of super heavy Mino in sort of how the guns are apparently supposed to work.
One difference between this and Goliath is that Goliath has a super heal, this does not.
But this one gets smoke.
Yes, it does. It gets a 355 Hydro. Gets near enough 60,000 hit points. It gets decent AA-ish. 32 knot base. And 14 concealment. This is smoke firing. Can we see that in the game anymore?
9.5. Detectability, mouse over the 14.1.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but we have no information on how these ships are being distributed or sold. No, we can only guess. Like, they've recently added Ragnar as a steel ship, so who knows? Ooh, I do like that other scheme. I like
Yeah,
that one.
I'm just gonna put it in the water.
I like that one.
Yeah, that is pretty.
Yes, I shall have that one.
I like the camos that are asymmetrical, like the different on both sides. It's got an exciting side, and it's got a boring side. The back half of this side is just grey. Um, for reference, for those who didn't catch it, that's the other side. Is the green one.
What this also does mean is that with Drake, Goliath, and Gibraltar's hulls modelled, it potentially makes the introduction of British supercruisers considerably easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because while the 9.2-inch projects were being looked at up until the early part of World War II, at several points it was asked whether or not these ships could be modified to swap out their numerous 9.2s for a fewer number of 12s. So I believe the 9-gun ship like Drake was, they thought we can fit 6 12s on this and 3 twins, sort of a mini Repulse and Renown.
Mm-hmm.
The in 4 triples and the 3 quad version was looked at being able to mount 9 12-inch guns. So who knows? Maybe in the near few years we might see a British supercruiser, which is basically a gun swapped Gibraltar, which would be correct because the Royal Navy certainly looked at those
Mm-hmm.
sorts of projects because they'd done all the work on the hull. They had a 12-inch gun turret designed from the early 1930s when they were designing smaller battleships, but they were trying to limit the caliber to 12-inch. So they had all the designs worked up for it. So they knew how much it weighed, they knew how big it was, and they designed these ships with the air to maybe, with a bit of work, you could pull the quad out and drop a triple in. So we may be seeing Wargaming covering their bases here with Gibraltar because the hulls would basically be the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure, it'd make the development easier. Cool. I love the deck on this one. It's really detailed.
And they said, say what we want about the marketing, but the art department is bang on.
It's really funny. You compare the early models with the later ones, and the
Oh,
deck is definitely something that stands out. Um, they've done such a good job with the texture that it looks like you can see the kind of contour of the individual planks. Of course, you can't; it's not there.
yes.
But yeah, it's stunning work.
Too specialized yak because do you want to try and take okay, in ships that we have in game yak, do you want to try and take a black swan against a Yamato? Because that's essentially what you're asking for. Black Swan's on the bigger and more heavily armed side.
Cool. Right.